and your life.
Hello, Facebook. How y'all doing? Let's talk about this sexual harassment. Sexual harassment and all those things. Oh, let's see here. Talking about are you susceptible to it? Can this happen to you? Let's talk about that today. Come on in, Facebook. All kind of Facebook Lives going on. We got Facebook Live, Urban Broadcast Media. Facebook Live on the Sir Walter Jones Show. And we got YouTube Live on YouTube.com. And we are UrbanBroadcastMedia.com on the audio version of the app. How about that? I'm waiting on some sound. I don't hear any sound. Let me know when y'all are ready. Oh, all right. Everybody, Sir Walter Jones Show. I am he. It is Wednesday. It is another amazing day today in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? In the great Bronzeville neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. No, it ain't Chi-Town. Sorry, y'all. We are so over that. Thank you for the movie, but no thanks. This is a great city to live in, especially in this area right here. Great, rich food and culture and art. Entertainment, you name it, is great. Come check me out over here at Urban Broadcast Media, 41st and the King Drive. Just say it. Tell them Sir Walter Jones sent you, and sit down and just wait till I get in. All right, man. I tell y'all, we got a great show today. It is a show that might make some of you uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable because we're talking about sexual harassment. And are you a target, ladies out there? Are you a target for sexual harassment? Brothers, are you a target for sexual harassment? Believe it or not, men are also susceptible to it just as much as the women folks are. There is this narrative out there that only women should be worried about it, and this is not true. There are some men who have been molested and attacked and raped and abused by their lovers, whether it's their wives or whether it's their girlfriends, fiancés, brothers, sisters, mothers, you name it. There are a lot of men out there who have also been abused. And some people says, how could that happen to men as strong as they are? They're made of brute and they're made strong and coverers. When you get a mind, the mind of a person, male or female, when you get a hold of the mind of anybody, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult, then you can do whatever you can and will with that person's body. See, once you got the mind, you got the body. Once you got the mind, you got the spirit, you got the flesh, you got the soul, you got it all. All right? It's all manipulation. It's mind control. And we're going to talk about some of the people who are famous for this, for mind control. The reason why many of you are susceptible to sexual harassment from these predators is because it's all about mind control. I've heard that people in the psychological industry talk about how when pedophiles attack these little boys and little girls, it's not about the sex, but it's about the control. When I was younger, I thought that was ridiculous. I thought it was all about sex. It was all about him getting his sexual satisfaction, but that's not so true. Sex has, of course, a lot to do with it. That's the end result, but really, it really is about control. Many of these men who are trying to get their so-called rocks off, what have you, it's about both of them, actually. But he knows that he's got you at a place where you're vulnerable. And what place is that? That place is a place where you need him for something. You need him to do something for you, or he have got you mentally into a place over hours sometimes. Sometimes it don't take hours, sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes months, and sometimes it takes years. That's why many of these pedophilia cases are from people, are adults who know the child know the predator. It might be Uncle Bobo, it might be Auntie Grace, okay? If any Auntie Graces out there, I want to apologize to you, okay? It could be anybody, but it's usually somebody that child knows. It could be the kindergarten teacher. It could be the minister, the priest, the pastor, the deacon, the trustee board. It could be the usher, but it's somebody that child knows, all right? And that's the same thing when it comes to domestic violence. It's somebody that person, the victim, knows and trusted. And then this thing happened. And sometimes the woman is placed in a place where, you know, she cares for him and he may care for her as well, but then some things happen where she decided I don't want to go any further, and then this thing happens. So you got different cases here. But are you who are watching on YouTube, you who are watching on Facebook Live, you who are listening on Urban Broadcast Media through our app, what about you? Go ahead and hit us up here. Matter of fact, you can call if you want to, 312-754-4333. 312-754-4333, and tell us your story. We can find out, maybe we can protect and help some of the people who might be on their way to be in a situation like that. Okay? We've been hearing about the whole Weinstein guy. Weinstein, yeah, I tell you, that name is synonymous now for freakazoid. Yeah, I said it. There's so many others out there that we want to talk about. Not so much in detail about the predator, but we want to talk about those who, well, they have been victimized by these creeps, okay? And then I'm going to bring in my dear friend who's, y'all should see her hair. Wait till you see the hair on my guest today. The hair, she's having a hair affair.
Women.
But I want to mention some of the people that you guys know. Remember Clarence Thomas, Chief Justice Clarence Thomas of the Supreme Court. He's one of the 9 who sits in that place where they wear those robes. They're black robes, by the way. Okay, with the Anita Hill situation, remember the hair on the Coke, and he talked about, he said that it's a public lynching, all right, and we never knew really the truth, and people dismissed Anita Hill, okay, because they're saying this didn't happen, because look at Clarence Thomas, look at his track record, look at his background, look at his scholastic achievements and all these things, and surely that could not have been him. And usually the victim continue to be double victimized by us because we look at the predator or potential or the alleged predator as being someone upper echelon or a trusted person, someone we thought could never do this, and we continue to beat up on the victim. Why? Because look at Bill Cosby. Look at the effect here. Look at the things that he alleged and all those women that came forth. And many of us says, surely that could not have been Bill Cosby. He is America's dad. All right? And he's the man who taught us lessons. I mean, he was, hey, it's Fat Albert. I mean, he gave us, our children, lessons. He gave us lessons in the 70s, right? And then in walked the Bill Cosby Show, because there was two. There was a Cosby Show in the 60s, and then there was the Cosby Show in the 80s. So for those of you young folk who don't know that, yeah, yes, all right. And so there all these women came forth, and many of us African Americans says he didn't do it. We denied that it happened. Why? Because it's Bill Cosby, someone we trusted. And then even out of his own mouth, he said these women knew what they were getting themselves into, like what the president said about this poor family. They were on a date with me. And yada, yada, yada. It came out of his own mouth, all right? But then we still says he didn't do it, even though he said they were with me, they were on a date, okay? We look at Fox News. Bill O'Reilly, all right? Freakazoid, okay? Bill O'Reilly, of course, Ryder L., and many of the people, there's a climate on Fox News for sexual harassment and addiction, and the network in itself protects the sexual harassers and don't protect the women who have to work with these men.
Absolutely.
Because of what? Money? What do you think it is?
Of course, because the male.
Talking that mic, we have one. Pull it down.
Okay.
People need to see that too. Why are you so low down there? You so low down? Maybe not. It's for the camera.
You know what? That's wrong. That is that's wrong on
yeah.
so many levels.
Yeah, I know.
So many levels.
So many levels. Get it? Boom.
Yes, right.
Okay, but why? Why are they protecting the men but let the women be susceptible to this?
Because it's the old boys club. This goes back to the casting couch of Hollywood.
Casting couch.
It goes all the way back where men in power feel that they can do practically anything. including not even negotiate, but to barter for a woman's, and I don't even say sexuality, to me it's like a body part, because you don't, what is it that they get out of that? That they get someone to submit? The laws protect them because it's the old boys club.
Sure.
You know, if they had to prosecute one, they probably have to go under prosecution themselves. So it's something that, and the thing is with women, it is a victimization, because first of all, we're not in such a hurry to talk about it, because along with victimization there is embarrassment.
Yes.
There is the fact that, you know, either I didn't trust my judgment, I didn't trust his judgment, I put myself in a situation. And the question also becomes like, how did that happen?
Sure.
But I think that it goes deeper, because along with the issue of power, I think there's also this issue of, it's like when pedophiles groom. You know, they don't just walk up to people automatically and say, hey, let me sexually harass you.
Right.
They groom them to a
Sure.
certain extent. They first of all make it seem like you can have certain things if you're willing to be nice, if you're willing to play ball. And a lot of women who have worked their whole lives or are eager to get into the industry, they go for it because they feel like, okay, well, other people have done it. If this is what it takes, I'm not willing to throw away my career because of this. And as women, we need to be able to develop some things, but it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very deep issue. Because I think there may have even been men that may have been in that sort of situation, men coming into the industry, and women who are in the position of power, who now say, well, you've got to do this, thus and so, in order to get, you know, maybe you can get this part. So
Marcus, darling.
yeah, really.
What, yeah. I mean, but this is true. You got a lot of strong women who, gosh, they're making movies about it now. These powerful CEO women who are taking advantage of these young, you know, fresh meat that join the company.
Oh, yeah.
And these things happen. That's why I premised that earlier before you got here, that men are just as, they're victims too.
That's true.
The numbers might not be as large, of course. It's obvious that the numbers are not as large for men, but still it does happen. One is one too many.
Exactly.
So we talked about Clarence Thomas, Bill Cosby, Bill Radi, Roger Ailes, Harvey Weinstein, even Donald Trump, okay? And another one who his stuff just went away because he became president.
Exactly.
It just went away, got covered, but he's still a perverted man. I believe in my heart of hearts he's a perverted man.
I don't think perverted men who are not perverted don't hang with perverted men.
Right.
And there were pictures of him hanging with, what was his name, Jason somebody, who was a known pedophile.
Sure. Yes.
You know, billionaire, but known pedophile. So, you know, he's at parties with him, so what do you think they do?
Sure.
You know, so, to me, there's no way that he could explain it. That's why he didn't even really try.
Right.
You know, they just kind of made it go away.
Yeah, they made it go away, absolutely. And again, your promotion don't stop your desire.
Exactly.
To do the things you were doing before the promotion. And marriage don't stop your desire to be a pimp, to be a player or a drug dealer, whatever. You just it's like they used to say in church about being baptized. You go down dirty, come up, you go down a dry sin and come up a wet one. Yeah. David Letterman, of course, we've heard some things about him as well, and he finally came forth and said, because finally somebody tried to blackmail him, that's why he came forth. And then we did a show on, we went into specifics on some of the ones that we didn't know that were into that thing, like Sigmund Freud, who's into the psychotherapy, okay, the psychology industry swear on. We'll look at Mahatma Gandhi, okay, who swore that celibacy, but the way he kept testing the waters by sleeping with his own relatives. They didn't have sex, but he would put naked women in the bed to test his proclivity or whatever. Okay.
His virility.
Yeah, and all this crazy stuff.
Well, they used to put him in the bed to keep them warm.
Yeah,
you know, King David did. So.
They sure did. And the Bible says he didn't touch her, which means he was really dead. He was dead. Okay, let's see.
But this is the thing, though. We talked about those powerful men, but what about men in general? This is not something that I believe that just occurs with powerful men. I believe it occurs with men in general.
Yes.
I think because men are driven by their lust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're driven by their lust.
Sure.
So the thing is that a lot of times a man will put himself in a position where there's something either that a woman wants or that, you know, maybe she's open to, and then it becomes a sexual thing where it's a power play. Some kind of, it's a power play. Where even from the standpoint in terms of dating, ladies out there, I mean, tell me how many men that you've come across that tell you that, you know, that they're not interested in you unless they know that you're going to put out, unless they know that sex is on the table. So for women, it can become a sense of victimization where I'm thinking that we're together because we enjoy one another's company, but on another level, it's like from the standpoint, in order to maintain this company, I'm expected to do something that, especially being in the body of Christ, that I'm not even supposed to do.
Okay, you way ahead of me.
Oh.
We only 18 minutes in the show, and you ending the show. I gotta lead up to that part.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My
bad.
Yes, I do. I've been in radio.
We didn't go over notes, so.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've been in radio too long.
Jerry Fogel, okay, the Subway guy.
Okay.
Okay, we know he was messing around with, it's just nasty. You know, child pornography and all these things like that. Let's see, John Duggar, the Duggar family. Okay, we've got here Mike Tyson, is one of the world's, of course, the best heavyweight boxers. He's convicted. He's a sex convict. He's convicted. In 1991, he raped an 18-year-old allegedly. Let's see who else. Jim Morrison of The Doors, known for this. Tupac Shakur, believe it or not, 1993, a 23-year-old rapper was arrested on charges of first-degree sexual abuse, weapons possession, sodomy, and what have you. Robert Kelly, a.k.a. R. Kelly, is a deeply troubled man with a disturbing soft spot for underage girls, they're saying here. He's got quite a few cases here. 1994, he married Aaliyah. We know about that story there. Okay, and then he goes on. Michael Tyler, aka Mystical. Okay, got some issues going on with that. Roman Polanski, yeah, we know him. He's the one, the director behind Rosemary's Baby. And the pianist. Okay, he was sex offense. He has some sex offenses. Poster child for celeb sex offenses. All right, so Harvey Weinstein he's the Johnny come later. Paul Rubin, that's Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee's Playhouse. We know that story about him showing himself. Jeffrey Jones, he was the principal on Bueller's Day Off, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh wow.
Okay, yes. Jerry Sandusky, we know who that's the coach. Okay, retired coach from Penn State University. He's sitting in jail now. 52 counts of sexual abuse.
Wow.
Yeah, so the list goes on and on and on and on. Okay, and then there's an article in Vox that talks about the study finds 75% of workplace harassment victims experience retaliation when they spoke up.
Of course.
Okay, let's talk about that. They speak up about this, but 75% of them get they suffer this retaliation by either the person who's rebuking them or who's attacking, or the company itself. Because look at Fox News. They pretty much says when someone came forth about Bill O'Reilly, the news said, the owners said, we can't do nothing with him. He makes us too much money. Okay, so that makes others have no voice. So does that enable these predators to do whatever they want to do?
Of course it does. Of course it does. It enables them, and it supports them.
It supports
them. You know, because it's kind of like, if I make a certain amount of money, really I can do whatever I want, and I can do whatever I want to whomever I want, and they're supposed to just go with satisfy my needs, satisfy my desires, and so on, and it's you know, so I mean, we've shown that a lot of times though, because the industry, because I would say because of women's buying power, the whole threat of snatching endorsements from people has any kind of power, because nowadays what they will do, what women do is complain, and we will say, you know, this person he violates women. So how is it that you are paying him this, thus, and so? So I think that they've hit them in the pocketbook in that regard. But yeah, other than that, what else is there to do?
What else to do? Listen, I'm going to break for those of you who are on Urban Broadcast Media app. We're going to hear a little news and come right back. The rest of y'all hang out. We're going to keep talking to you. Sir Arthur Jones Show. Okay, Buddy Gill. Buddy Gill says, just tuning in. I don't know if you talked about this. Men are victims of sexual harassment too, but how do they look when they report the incident? Yes, we talked about that early in the show, Buddy. That men are absolutely victims, but I like the last portion of what you said is how do they look when they report the incident?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how can you possibly report an incident? You're a strong man, looked to in the community as a very strong man and empowered man. How do you report that some woman sexually harassed you on the job? I mean, what do you think a man would feel? I know you're not a man, but
well,
what do
I
you
think that there is a prevailing, even though it's wrong, there's a prevailing school of thought. It's like it's sex. Men want sex. How bad could it have been?
Right.
You know, so I think that we don't really look at them as victimization. If you even look at young boys who are victimized by teachers, you know, we think, oh, well, you know, hey, he's getting the thrill of his life. You know, what's he complaining about?
Yeah.
But even initially when we were talking about the show, I think that my question is really the effects of this in terms of, okay, so it happened, it was an act, but what are the afterlying effects of having been violated in that way, male or female? You know, I don't know how men deal with it, but with women, we have a very, it's like being raped, even though it may not have been a violent attack. It is a violation. I mean, a major violation. And men, we kind of think that men don't look at it that way. So I'd be interested in knowing from the standpoint, what is the man point of view, having been in that situation where a woman exerted her power for your sexual compliance?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we'd have to bring in some men who might have been in that situation. Welcome back to the Sir Arthur Jones Show. I'm he. Welcome back. I'm glad you hung around as long as you could. We try not to make our breaks too long because we just want to make sure we get back in on this. Okay, you can call those of you who are on the app, especially 312-754-4333, and we can tune you in, punch you in, and let the people hear you. But we were talking about on the break about what do men do? How do they feel? How do they approach? How do they report, that is, when something like that sexually has happened to them, or the attempt of a sexual harassment? How does it happen? I mean, you know, I've been sexually harassed, you know, in college by a man.
Wow.
And he was the secretary of the band director, you know, and he would pat me on the behind, whisper in my ears all the sexual things that he wanted to do to me. But I'm 17, 18 years old,
Right.
and fear is in me. I'm young, I don't know what to do, and I'm afraid. So when I hear people say, why don't y'all go to tell people to talk or speak up? Well, because you've never been in that position. It's easy to tell a person, you can stop smoking tomorrow if you want to, but you're not addicted to cigarettes.
Right.
So I'm saying, so when that was happening to me, my young mind says, this man could destroy you. You know, don't tell people what he's attempting to do. And the only way that I could get out of that is that I quit the band.
Wow.
Before he could
do anything.
Before
he could go further.
Before we go further, because he was working on my mind.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
fear.
it's a form of grooming. Actually, it's kind of like from the standpoint, if you take that much, then that means that, and you stay, then that means that you'll take more.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to take more, then how far can I go? Because I really want to go the distance. So basically, he had his system all worked out way before you, but he's trying to see how far he can get with you.
Yep.
You know, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll kind of sweeten the pot along the way.
Yep.
So you won't feel as threatened.
That's true. That's exactly it. One of my motivations one of my motivations was when the last time he was whispering in my ear and telling me what he was going to do. I looked in that band room. I saw all those boys in that room. And I kept thinking, how many of these boys?
Them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How many of those boys are he doing right now?
Right.
Who finally let him?
Right.
And I says, I can't do this.
Mm-mm.
So instead of me reporting it to his boss, I got up out of that.
Mhm.
You know, now I lost by doing that, but I didn't care because I can stand today saying, thank God I was able to escape that.
Exactly.
But others,
And a lot of
didn't
people
escape it.
stay.
yeah,
And they
escaped.
have their reasons for staying. And I'm not even saying from the standpoint, oh, they stayed, they were wrong to stay. But from the standpoint, you have somebody, for whatever reason, they are there for a reason.
Mhm, mhm.
Now here comes a predator that's threatening, because they're predators.
Yes.
They're all predators.
Right.
And they're threatening
Mhm.
what it is that, your motivation for being in band. They're threatening that.
Yes.
And sometimes some people say, well, I can duck and dodge, I can do this. And then there are some that have also been victimized from early on. So they might not be as intolerant of some things. They might be willing to go along to get along.
Mhm.
So, I mean, everyone's motivation can be different. But the thing is, the issue is them being attacked. And the fact that this is a predator that's loose in that situation where they shouldn't be.
Absolutely. Angela Elaine is saying, true, buddy, I have seen both sides, men and women, that the guys were perceived as weak. Angela Johns is saying, and this is the whole purpose of this show, Angela Johns, her question is, then tell me why grown women wait so long to say something, all right? We're gonna talk about that in 1 minute here. We kind of alluded to it, but we'll talk about it even further. The movie The Disclosure with Demi Moore and Mike Douglas is a good example. Shantae Charles says Joseph is a great example. Genesis 39.
Absolutely.
He was approached by the brother's wife. Okay, Potiphar, I think it's okay, and so Joseph did something, but which cost him something as well.
Exactly.
Because I keep wondering every now and then I would read that story and wonder what would have happened to him if he did give in to her advances. Okay, how would that have gone forth? Yes, he would have displeased God, but he would have pleased her, but I think he would have pleased her temporarily because she would have eventually said, all right, I'm done with you.
I think he would have lost his life.
Yes.
Because she was she was so eager to lie on him in the first place. I think that, her husband, the concession was sending him to jail.
Yes.
But I think that he would have had him killed. He would have killed him for sure.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I can see that. Natalie, what are you saying here? Men are emboldened in this current climate to say some of the most disrespectful things, expecting no retaliation. Friday, my daughter and I were leaving a sports venue, and one of the scalpers followed us. Okay, and then it stops. I can't read the rest of it because I don't see the rest. Maybe you can finish it. It stops where you say scalpers followed us down, and then that's all I see, Nanny. So if you can type the rest. Johnny Vickers says, when it comes to advances from a woman, men are not taught to say that they have been harassed. People will say that you are weak or you shouldn't be bothered by it. And you mentioned that by the teacher, the female teacher. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to y'all. I forgot y'all. The female teacher was much older.
Right.
And so the men. Okay, now I'm gonna be honest with you. Be honest with you. When that teacher, that female teacher, was having sex with that little boy, most men.
Which one? Because there've been a few.
All of them.
Okay.
Most men have the same response.
And they were like in their 20s, 30s. So,
yes.
Yeah,
one woman left her husband, and these two.
The most famous one.
The most famous one, and they got married, what have you, had the baby, what have you, okay? But most men say, man, if I was just that little boy, if I was in his shoes back then, I would have enjoyed doing that. Because you alluded to it earlier. That's what they say. But you have to put yourself
in that boy's shoes.
Because
the thing is, it seems like, in your mind, in your mind's eye, it seems like what could possibly be wrong with that? But no one is prepared for the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a victimization. It's like being raped. It's like it's a violation, really, of a person's sexuality.
Right.
Okay, so certain things are supposed to take progression as a person ages, and steps that are lost cause for them to it affects their development. So it's not a victimless crime.
Right.
It's something that now, as he goes forward in his relationship, something that's attached itself to him, and how he now deals with relationships. So, you know, it's easy to say, well, shoot, if that was the case, and I would, you know, but when it actually happens to you, if it actually happens to you, that's the only way you can really say what you would do.
What you would do.
Because it's like, in order for you to really be that thrilled with it, you have to embrace the fact that you're being victimized.
Absolutely. Angela John, let's address her. Why? Now, she brought up a point that most people ask. You're an adult.
Yes.
Why haven't you come forward? And why is it that when this whole Weinstein, once one came forth, 50 came forth? Did Bill Cosby, one came forth, 15, 20 came forth. Why is it that you wait?
Several reasons.
All right, help us out.
I would say several reasons. Basically, in the first place, when something like that happens, think about it. You go to a situation, this sort of thing happens to you, and then you go home. You know, it's really a form, unless it's something that you have willingly consented to.
Right.
You know, I'm cool with this, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. Unless that's the attitude that you're taking, by the time you go home, you're feeling a certain kind of way. Right. You're feeling that you don't ever want anybody to ever know that, first of all, you were in that kind of position. Right. That, second of all, that you even did that. Right. Because the average person will say, well, if I was in there, I'd have gotten out of there, and so on and so forth. But you allowed it to happen. And you allowed it to happen a lot of times because you're not even sure why you allowed it to happen. But the issue is the whole scenario, it kind of puts you in a place of, I would say, compliance maybe. Because first of all, they're telling you that this is something that you have to do in order to get along. You'll get a certain degree of favor. You'll get this from doing that. You know, you and I, we're going to be good if you do that. So it's you know, it's all of that. And then there becomes a situation where, okay, after that, and you have to face this person and say that they're on to the next one, then it's like, how am I didn't say anything before. So who's going to believe me now? Who's going to believe me? What am I going to, and if I had to be in court, am I willing to even go to court on this? Yes. You know, because that means now that I'm willing to really throw my career out of the window, you know, because, you know, if I go to court now, then who's going to hire me next?
Yes, who's going to hire me next?
Who's going to hire me next? So from the standpoint, it's easier to sit on it, to count it up as a bad experience. But at the same time, as I said, the violation of a person's sexuality, it's, in my opinion, it's also a spiritual thing. Yeah. So a lot of times, if we're looking from the standpoint of how the condition of our soul, the condition of our mind, even from the standpoint how we're going forth and how we're feeling about this in terms of our next relationship, in terms of how we view men in this situation. A lot of this, like I think you had said sometime before, when these people get married, then how do they behave to their spouses? And all of this has it has an effect. It leaves a mark, it leaves a scar. So in terms of why they don't just go forth, nobody even they don't want to deal with that. Unless it was something where they really feel that they had to really go forth, they're like, you know, I can get over this on my own, and so on and so forth. Then you see other people going forth and say, wow, that happened to me too. Yeah. So when you say, okay, well, that happened to me, and somebody else goes, hey, it happened to me, then it's like, well, why not? You know, it happened to me, so, you know. And I think that's how that ball gets rolling, you know. So, you know, I think that it's again, it's not a victimless crime. Just because you got over it years ago, or you did your best to do what was necessary to not go forward and expose them, it wasn't a climate of exposing people back then.
That's true. That's why we have a person like Bill Cosby who was able to do what he did, and on. The coming forth more and more seems like it weakens the others who are coming forth. it weakens them in the eye of the public opinion. They said, oh, that couldn't have happened, or he couldn't have done it to all these women. Now everybody coming forth, and it's like a repeat. It's like a murder. A person murders someone, or a group of people. Then you got what's called copycat murders, okay? All these things. So people think that, no, he couldn't have done all this.
They're trying to jump on the bandwagon.
Yep, they're weakened. The money is all about the money. Right. And that is the flaw in America. Now, there was an episode on All in the Family where Gloria was at, she was walking down the street. All right, and there were some construction workers. We always hear the narrative of construction workers. They always whistling, catcalling, and she pretty much came home and she was disturbed, and she was kind of closed up, and they couldn't get out of her what was going on, which is an element of a victim. Close up. They don't talk. Okay, and they don't do the things that they usually would do on a day-to-day basis. Exactly. Okay, so and I think it's one of the great episodes of All in the Family, because they dealt with everything. And finally the husband finally got her to say, or no, it was the mama. Here's the thing, again, great writing. Edith Bunker finally got her to say what happened. While she was talking to Edith, Edith was dismissing it. Edith was like, oh, I think I need to go to the store. And she was like, Mom, but this happened. You know what? I think something is burning on the oven. She was slipping into that mother denial, or says, okay, this is going to go away if I don't talk about this. All right? Now, again, it was excellent writing. But then as the episode went further on, they keep telling her to talk about it. Talk about it. And so they brought in either a lawyer or a detective, one of the two. I think it was a detective, something like that, to say, you got to bring this guy to court and talk about it. So it says, I don't know, but you need to do it. He says, let's do a mock trial. Okay, and this is why the victims don't come forward, because you mentioned court. That's why I'm bringing this up. Let's do a mock trial. So he's like, all right, act like I am the lawyer who's defending this predator. All right, and then this guy, this lawyer, began to barrage her with these questions. How many times do you walk down that same strip? I walk down that strip every day after 5 o'clock. Okay, have they ever whistled at you? Yes, but you still choose to walk down that same strip. But they've never touched me. No. Look at you. What was you wearing Tuesday on it? What I was wearing? You see? Were you baiting them?
Exactly.
So this lawyer, and so the husband like, how dare you victimize my wife? He says, listen, a good lawyer is gonna get this. And he's gonna get this case thrown out. And so he was pretty much trying to say, this is why victims don't come forward, because they are always victimized by, not only the public, but also those who are professionals as well. And this is an epidemic, I believe.
It is.
Now, some of you have been typing here. I want to read this because there's some good stuff here. Lady Michelle says some women fear they will not be taken seriously, and yes, made feel like they asked for it. That's true. That's why the Me Too movement is making momentum. Laurelene says I was kidnapped at a national AIM convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, by a courtesy car driver, and the reason I didn't say anything is because he was on the platform with the bishops that night, and I felt like I would overreact, and I can't see the rest of it. But I think this has something to do with Laurelene. You have a book, I believe, that's dealing with this. I want to talk about that as well. I know some people who were at conventions and they were molested. They were molested in the hallways, and one guy is right now on the sex offenders list because at the convention he saw this girl and he had his way with her. All right, these things happen when we go. It happens everywhere, and I want to talk about this after the break. That these things could happen also in your religious organization, in church. No matter where you are, this could happen. Even in the court of law, it has happened. All right. I'm coming right back. But I'm gonna keep talking to you guys. So on the John Show. She's doing her dance over here, so I had to quit. Angela John says, I have seen a victim before, so I learned how to protect myself by being bold and not allowing myself to get into the situation again. Situations. Yeah, okay. All right, we want to deal with this again, because again, the whole purpose of the show was to talk about, are why are you placed in this position to be a victim, and can you avoid it? Can you avoid it?
Okay.
Because you're wherever you go, you are susceptible to it. But some people can place themselves deeper into it, even though they've gotten some of the hints that this person should be trusted, but they continue with it because there's something they want out of this man. All right. So I want you to elaborate on that. Lady Michelle is saying people who are molested tend not to tell for years. Some are torn within themselves trying to figure out what they did to deserve this violation. But then when they do tell and get shot down, it can damage them. Okay, true. Angela John says, I taught my children that if I did anything pervert any way, to go tell someone, because if
anybody
they
did
tell
anything to perverting to them,
absolutely.
to go tell someone.
It's never easy to deal with a situation of violation because it alters your mind and soul. This is Angela Lane. Eventually, you get to a point to talk about it, which releases you from burden. She's saying here. You agree with that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things. In my opinion, the enemy. That's how the enemy operates in darkness. So, in other words, when we keep things quiet, then your victimization is it's assumed to be contained. I can handle
assumed to be contained. That's good.
Assumed to be contained. I can handle it. Yes. However, it's not, because it's not that's something that you need help with. You know, if we you realize that sexual abuse, people that have been sexually abused don't always even remember the fact that they've been sexually abused a lot of times.
Hold that point. Welcome back to the Sir Walter Jones Show. I'm he. We're talking about sexual abuse. And my guest here is bringing up a very important point. Now, what was that statement or question you just said?
Oftentimes, sexual abuse victims, especially things that have happened earlier in their lives, a lot of times they forget it. They block it out.
Absolutely.
As a defense mechanism.
Yes.
Your mind tends to block it out. It's the way that it's kind of like how a lot of times they've even said, if you in terms of psychology, other people have actually developed other personalities to kind of deal with that kind of things because things happened when they were so young. But yeah, it's a situation where people who are sexually abused, it's not uncommon that these sort of, because they're like, well, why didn't they just go tell it? Because a lot of times they've forgotten it because their mind protects them by putting them in that kind of bubble where it just didn't happen. You know, so.
Yeah, it just didn't happen.
Until something comes and triggers it.
Sure.
Something inevitably, years and years and years, will trigger that thing. And then they have to still deal with it. So if it was something that was so inconsequential, you know, that's one thing, and why would it not leave a person's psyche who's actually trying to forget it?
Sure.
You know, so yeah.
Absolutely. I think we need more capable people in our churches.
Oh, definitely.
I believe in my heart of hearts, and I know this is not popular, but I think that we need to start mandatorily assigning these who are in the 5-4 ministry. All right, many of them think that they got it all under control. They believe they can solve everybody's problems. Okay, you pastors out there, I know y'all ain't gonna like this at all. You think that you can solve everybody's problems, whatever it is, and I think you are going to a borderline of doing something illegal. I think you are impersonating professionals in the psychological world. I believe that in my heart of hearts. And when you do that outside of your church, that's really, that's a jail offense.
It is.
Okay, coupled with a fine. But we do it in our churches, and we've been getting away with it for a long time.
Under the auspices of ministry and counsel.
Yes, and we tell these poor women, we give them advice that a professional would not give them. And I'm not talking about spiritual advice. I'm talking about physical, normal, natural advice that a professional would not tell them, and then we put these women in harm's way. and we send them home to abused homes, because then we bring up the spiritual by saying God hates divorce,
Right.
He don't like the division, or so you tell them go back home to that abusive
Right.
husband,
Right.
and then the woman comes back to church with a black eye, with an arm in a cast, or we have to go to visit her at the gravesite.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that fortunately, many of the white churches have conformed, or they've transformed maybe,
Mhm.
over into now making sure that these people go to classes.
Okay.
They're actually paying for classes
Mhm.
for these men and women in ministry
Mhm.
to talk and sit with those who are professionals,
Mhm.
see how we can further help
Exactly,
the
because
members.
it is much cheaper to send someone
Yes.
to a class
Sure
than it
is.
is to have to deal with a suit,
Yeah.
you know, against the church because of this individual who apparently has issues trying to do something that they really do have no business doing. But the thing is, it kind of goes back to something that you said before regarding the responsibility of the church. The church should be able to be responsible in that area, because if you go to a regular psychiatrist or psychologist, therapist, they're not always saved. So they're going to treat you how the industry has trained them to treat you. Oftentimes that's giving you some kind of drugs. It's never really encompassing your spiritual perspectives. So, you know, they're not trained. That's hooey to them. They
Sure.
don't understand it. That's
Right.
something, you know, so they're not saying they've never had an experience in Christ, so they can't explain any of that.
Right.
So in their opinion, it doesn't really exist. You're fanatical, and while you're here, I got you on my column, we're gonna deal with that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really wonder how many people that actually, in the body of Christ, who actually go to secular therapists and psychologists who end up coming back, and now their faith is kind of, it's
on
either
shaky
seared
ground.
or it's on shaky ground. But I think that all the more the churches should, or people, they should encourage people to go into those fields and to get that knowledge, because a lot
There
of
it
times
is.
you're dealing with that kind of a thing.
Yes.
Some of it is spiritual and some of it is psychological, and someone with a balance of both, who understand both, can be able to identify things, I think, a lot better than someone who is strictly one way or the other.
I agree, and the reason why I agree, because I've been here. I don't believe in secular psychology, especially for Christians. I don't, and there's a reason
I don't
why.
either.
Yeah, and I've done that show already. I've done it several times. I've had Annette Harris has her psychology show. I've talked about it on her show as well, and I have proof why I believe that shouldn't happen. Because they're taking an injury and putting a Band-Aid on it. And God is all about making a person whole, but at the same time, God is He is omniscient, so He uses the science of man as well to make you whole. Okay,
I think that they're not putting a Band-Aid on it. I think that they do damage. I think that because if you're dealing with something that they can't deal with, it's very difficult for a believer to try to explain it, because now they want to make you think you're fanatical.
Yes.
Because you even bother to mention Christ maybe twice in a 5-minute period.
Yes.
So I wouldn't even say put a Band-Aid on it. It says sometimes a psychologist will probably try to go do surgery on something that they really have no kind of background.
Well, it's taboo in the church. And from the pulpit, it is preached taboo, meaning they don't talk about it.
Right.
They just say, come down to the altar, we throw some oil on you, and there's no resources. Okay, so my pastor sent me outside the church to a Christian psychologist who we talked about more religion than we did my psychological issues.
Exactly.
Okay, because my pastor knew that. He says, and this is why you got to have leaders who you know and trust, and they know where they stop.
Exactly.
Understand that, where they stop.
Exactly.
My
they know
pastor,
what their limitations are.
he realized he could not take me any further. Right? He said, so I'm gonna send you to someone who our church have adopted. So when I have members here who are having these issues, we send them to him because he's gone to school for 1,000 years, and he loves the Lord. All right, and so
he can understand.
He can understand. So when I went there, and my pastor was right, because when I started talking to him, the first thing this man said, and if you live in Chicago, you know where Holy Names Cathedral is downtown. His office is right next door, and he pretty much says, listen, I know your pastor, I know his family. I live right across the street from them. He says, but I cannot by law divulge anything you and I are saying here. I could lose everything.
Of course.
He says, I'm telling you this now so that I'll let you know, just because your pastor referred you here, don't mean that I'm going back to your pastor.
How many times have you talked
I'm
said
telling you.
something to your pastor,
Yes.
and folks are looking at you crazy
telling
because
you.
now everybody knows.
Everybody
about
knows
it.
that it's you, okay? Because they was at the party when it happened,
Right.
okay? So he says, I can't divulge any of this, so I'm letting you know it's okay to tell me whatever you want to, because I could lose my
He
license.
created a safe environment.
Yes, he did, and I told him everything, and it really worked. I'm so
Wow.
glad for
That's
it.
wonderful.
Now, Lorraine, okay, wait, let me go back. Somebody was saying something important. Zoe Sybil here.
Hey, Zoe.
Zoe is our dear friend who was an atheist only a few days ago. She's now proclaimed. The Lord has healed her of this thing called atheism.
Hey.
She's now an evangelist.
I love Zoe.
She loves the Lord. This is an area I am very knowledgeable. We know her story. I have been a victim over and over in the past and know the effects it has on our mental state. All right, and I'm going to have to get her on this particular show so she can call in and tell her story. The actress says, "Good afternoon. This show's content is really needed." The actress, guess that's anyway.
Yeah, we've been bonding lately.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman.
Yes.
I'm watching on YouTube. Hi, she's watching over there. How are you watching on YouTube and watching on the other? But you all right? You must got several apps going on. Well, stay on YouTube, the UBM app or the YouTube thing there. Okay, stay right there. She says it's a good alternative to Facebook Live. Yep, as I can see you both at the same time. Love it. YouTube, you all right by me. All right, y'all blame Joe for the wonderful content that we have here. That she's over there, y'all can't see it, but she's sitting over there. Laureline says, God took the pain and anxiety of my past hurts away and healed me. He told me that the past is obsolete now, and he has taken me to the next level. Laureline, I can't wait to get you on the show.
Said that, Laureline?
Laureline B, yes, come on. Lady Rochelle says, a couple of years ago, a Kojic pastor attempted to force himself on me with his wife in the other room.
Oh, no.
He started by giving me money in front of the church like he was helping a single mother and offering to pay some of my bills. And this one time he called me in the office and tried to force his tongue down my throat.
Oh my goodness.
And I was able to get out of there and never return. I prayed about it and came to the conclusion that it wasn't my place to blast him. So I left that church and never went back. I feared that this was going on before me.
Of course.
And still going on today.
He had a system.
Yep, he did have a system. That's the Harvey Weinstein effect, okay? The church do not want to hear about it, Laureline says. Laureline, yes. Carla Ratliff says, I've done both, and personally I have enjoyed both. At the end of the day, the client needs to do the work. The therapist provides an outlet to help you explore the issues. The season is over. The individual then works to explore those issues internally and spiritually. No wants to hear, maybe you're saying no one, maybe, wants to hear a sermon when you are dealing with hurt.
No.
I guess I have been blessed to have a positive experience. Hey, Carla Ratliff, yes, you like myself had a positive experience. Okay, out of it all. Yes, you're going to say something.
Well, I mean, I think that, as you said, she said that she's done both. But I think that also from the standpoint, there needs to be that kind of dynamic along with the spiritual aspect. I think that sometimes deliverance has a place in there.
Yes, it does.
I think that when these things happen, we talk about transference of spirit. We talk about when two get together. When someone has done something, it leaves something with you.
Yes, it does.
You know, and
you can
it doesn't.
Smell
You
it
can't
sometimes.
exactly, and that's it becomes. It's a psychological thing, but a lot of times it's also a spiritual thing.
Yes.
And a lot of times a person needs to be cleansed of these things because you can go through the secular and the Christian side and you can still feel this thing, but deliverance has a way, because it's the power of God, it's the power of Christ. It washes, it can truly wash what can't be washed or cleansed through psychology.
And you get
Christian
that's true,
or otherwise.
because you just heard from a couple of these people who said that.
Wow.
They've been washed of that. Robert Taylor says many of our spiritual leaders need to recognize that they can't do it all, which I said, outsourcing, delegating to qualified individuals such as Christian therapists and psychologists is okay.
Very wise.
Yeah. Yes.
But everybody doesn't do that.
No.
It's easier for them to shirk it. You know, if they're not trying to deal with it themselves, knowing that they can't deal with it, then they try to like they'll even go as far as to avoid people.
Yes, they will.
Who are having these kind of problems, and that's not the place of the church. We're supposed to be the hospital. We're supposed to be the place where people come for healing and can get healing because it's God.
Yes.
You know, it's the power of Christ after all.
Yes.
So, you know, it's very discerning when the people that are in there giving the sermons or whatnot are handling things badly. You know, because they don't want to admit that they don't have that kind of background, they don't have that kind of study, they don't have that kind of experience.
That's true. Well, we keep saying, let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus. Right? We say it all the time. Right, YouTube? Okay, well, here's the thing. Christ used both spiritual and natural a lot. He's on the Sermon on the Mount, and he's preaching a gospel to the people. Spiritual. He's talking about spiritual matters. They got hungry. Guess what he did? He fed them food. Not spiritual food. He fed them food. There were lepers. They were sick. You know what leprosy is. And he healed them.
He healed them.
They walked away. One came back.
He didn't tell them to go and not be so sensitive.
No, healed them. Now watch what he did though. He knew his place was limited to proclaim they healed by other men. So he told them to go show themselves to the priest. You know why? Because the priest was the only one in town who can proclaim those men healed. To be clean. Even though Jesus did the healing, he sent them to the priest so that they could legally say this. So the doctor is still needed today, just like Christ is needed. Christ could heal you, but then what he does, he sends you to the doctor so that the doctor can say that you are. Even if he sends you to the doctor to give you some type of follow-up therapy or what have you, that's up to Christ how he want to do it. Right? Because he said, it is not the well that seek a physician. He says that those who will seek, that are sick, seek physicians. So if Jesus is telling us, it's okay to go to the doctor.
It's okay.
Why do we remove them out of our churches?
Well,
you got to do this after that.
Okay.
Break them, but we're going to keep talking here. Okay? Those of you on the app, I'm coming right back, I promise you. Some other John show. Yes. Why?
I'm sorry.
Why did we kick the therapists out of our churches? And why so much taboo in our churches?
Well, I mean, if we're kicking the therapists, are we talking about kicking the secular therapists, or are we talking about kicking the Christian therapist? Or are we saying that there is no such thing as Christian therapy?
Right. I don't think in many of our churches that there is no such thing as that which is mental, that you can get help for the mental state of a person outside of the church, where we just pour oil on you and we're good, because that's taboo to talk about mental illness in our churches. It's always been that way. Right. Why is that?
Because it becomes a thing where I don't want to deal with what I can't handle.
Okay.
If I can't handle it, I don't want to deal with it.
That's a good answer.
So, you know, because it's going to make me look bad.
Yes.
So, you know, I don't want to look bad.
Yes.
You know, so it becomes a situation where it's easier to dismiss it. It's easier in their opinion. You know, a lot of times, as I said, the church is good a lot of times, not blanket, but I mean, there have been situations where the church is good at ignoring hurting people.
Yes.
You know, so
ignoring hurting people.
Because they can't deal with it. You know, and rather than really pray and say, okay, God, this is the situation, this is there, and how am I supposed to deal with it? They just will, like, you know, wave their magic, like sling oil on it, and if it doesn't, you're not better, it's on you. It's because of you. Something about you.
Something's wrong with you.
You know,
like
God did what he was supposed to do, but you know, so no, that's, and that's not God.
No. Whatsoever. That's not him. So we've got many in the fivefold ministries who are just walking to and fro with these positions of power, and we kind of praise them, not realizing that many of them have no clue of anything outside of the Bible, really how to help us. Okay, So as your phone ring, I'm gonna read this thing here from Vox.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do. We catch everything on this show. Yes, we do.
See.
Studies find 75% of workplace harassment victims experience retaliation. Okay, I'm coming right back. Wait, y'all. I got to sign these folks back in. Welcome back to the So Author Jones Show. I am he. I told y'all it wasn't going to be long. I promised y'all. It's the 5 o'clock hour here in Chicago, Illinois. Oh, the weather outside is frightful. It must be maybe about 55 degrees. At least in here, it was cold, but now these lights are warming me up.
Yeah,
but I don't know about Johanna over there. She's been cold since she's been sitting here. But now she's standing. Maybe she's trying to warm her body up.
You're supposed to give her some of your tea.
Well, she had tea, but she said it didn't work. It didn't work out for her. Yeah. So, yeah. Y'all just pray for Johanna as she sit up under the lights and get warm. Hallelujah. Yeah. Carl Ratliff says, I was raped by my pastor, Christian counseling was not my first choice.
No,
Bam! I'm trying to tell y'all this stuff is big time in our churches. However, my personal relationship with God was sufficient to sustain my faith and promote my healing. Yep, thank you. Everyone deals with hurt differently. No cookie cutter remedies. Hurt requires custom work. Carla,
yes, it does.
that should be written.
I'm so sorry that even happened.
Yeah, me too. It's amazing.
Like you said, we had a show based upon that. The Lord only knows how, how many people can have that kind of testimony.
Yep.
And it's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame.
But it goes back to the cover up.
Yep.
Okay, they were covering these things up.
Yes.
And see, we were never taught to take these people to court.
That's right.
We were never taught in terms of even the police. They didn't want you to involve the police. They didn't want you to do anything. So
right.
in terms of saying, why do people not report that these, a lot of times, even in terms of the body of Christ, you can be ostracized. If you don't separate and ostracize yourself, you can be ostracized for even being willing to go vocal about something.
To go vocal about something. Robert Taylor says also believers have an obligation to, at some point, take responsibility for their lives and tap into their God source. If we have a need that our spiritual leaders cannot provide, if we tap into God, we will provide us, God will provide us with answers and provide the resources that we need. Now, this is important here. This is something that needs to be dealt with here because we go to our leaders for everything.
Absolutely.
Everything. Spiritual and natural, financial, moral, you name it. Scientifical, of course, it's
scientifically.
Yeah, because I hear it said it's the word I just made up. All right, we'll go to them for everything. And so it's like going to a poor person for financial advice. All right, so the church, the pastor is really, he needs he's in an apartment, all right, and he's relying on the offerings to help sustain him. He has no investments, okay, you see what I'm saying? And if the offering is low, you got to raise the second and third offering, which means he's poor. All right, so you go to him for financial advice, and he gives you that advice every Sunday around 11, 12 o'clock. It's usually the same type of advice. Then you go home in a poor state, and you stay in that poor state for years. That's what we have done. We've placed these men and women on this plateau that they give us advice for absolutely everything.
We're trained. That's church culture.
Yes,
we are trained. I was taught you don't make a move unless you talk to your pastor.
Yep, I know.
You don't do a thing.
Everything.
You don't date anybody. You don't buy anything. You don't do anything unless you talked it over with your pastor first.
Yep, and that has hurt. That has hurt many people, and even today when you got these the women who are church, they got unsaved husbands at home. And then this woman go home and says, my pastor said, my pastor said, my pastor said.
See, they don't want to hear that.
You see what I'm saying? And some of these pastors have gotten beat up, shot. Some of them lost their lives because the wife came home and said, my pastor said. And after a while, that husband was like, you know what? You need to go stay with your pastor. Bob Taylor says, and that model keeps us dependent on the pastor and not God.
Exactly, and that was one of my major, when I began to really, because if church is kind of like, you go along to get along, but I would have a saying, I said, it seems to me that these people are trying to make me more dependent upon a man, upon this pastor, than they are upon Christ.
Right.
And that's kind of like my line.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't knowledgeable enough in terms of, because as I said, I wasn't born into church culture.
Sure.
So I wasn't knowledgeable. When I really came into it, it was kind of a new thing, and I was willing to submit to it. But at the same time, certain things like, if Jesus is my all and all, then I can't rationalize treating this person as though they are my Jesus.
That's right. Yes.
And I've had pastors say, you know, from the standpoint, you follow me as I follow Christ. Then there was some that said, you know, okay, you follow me, period.
Yep.
You know, whether or not I follow Christ.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't get with that.
I've literally heard, and you know that's witchcraft, by the way, it's manipulation of witchcraft, all right? I've literally heard them say, if Christ come up in this house, this church, you still ignore him and you pay attention to him. When I heard that, I says, I'm getting out of here. It's time to go because the lightning is coming down.
Yeah.
There is this thing, okay? We really have to be careful because we need to designate. There's too many capable people in our churches who can handle certain things.
Exactly.
And we put
so
too
we're
much.
Not trying to throw everybody in the same bucket.
Yes, and we put too much on the pastor because Moses was doing everything until his father-in-law says, you know what, you're going to kill yourself. And he told him, you need to designate these people to do things, and you handle the weightier matters, and let these other ministers and elders handle the little small stuff, okay? When people come to me for advice, and depending on what it is, I first tell them, listen, if I know about it and have knowledge on it, I'll give them advice. But when I know I'm limited, I said, listen, I'm not the guy.
No.
But I know the guy. See what I'm saying? I don't leave them and say, go and be fair.
That's not my area.
Yeah, I said, listen.
Good luck to you.
That's right. That's above my pay grade.
Right.
Here is the phone number of the guy who can lead you this way.
Right.
When people ask me to produce their CDs, okay, I get a lot of calls. They I'm getting ready to do a 10 CD set. I need you to come in the studio and produce it. Okay, I said, okay, great. I can do it all. I can produce it, write it, I can be the engineer, I can play the piano, and all, put the string, I can do all that. But I ain't gonna kill myself. So you know what I do? I pick up the phone, and I call a whole bunch of folks, call a whole band in there. I'll produce the product. If I had did everything, it would take me 3 months to finish the project. But because I called these guys in, they finished it in 2 weeks. You see what I'm saying? And so this is proper delegation.
It is.
That many of our pastors, unfortunately, don't have because they felt that they were not, first of all, I think they were not trained. When they were ordained, they were not told, you can't solve every problem. You're a pastor over the people, over the flock, okay? And the Bible gives us leeway. It says, give him double honor. Fine. All right? He's a watch over your soul. Fine. But even God has given him limitations because he told them, do not lord over the people. When you start lording over the people, now you're taking my position.
Exactly.
And so what we've done with pastors is we put the veil back up. When the veil was rent, we put it back up. So what we did was now we got to go to the pastor in order so the pastor go beyond the veil and talk to Christ.
Right.
That's what we did. Even though that thing was rent on the cross.
Exactly.
So we can go to Christ for ourselves.
Right.
And then Christ could send us to our pastors for certain things.
Right.
But Christ himself could heal us of all things, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
But I think that there are times that there are some pastors that they are insecure.
Yes.
I believe that's why they don't want to delegate, because they want to be the man on top, which them delegating doesn't negate that.
No, absolutely.
But at the same time, they want to be in the position where I do it all.
Yes.
You know, it's like a badge of honor. I do it all. Well, you're not God. You're not Christ.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not your real responsibility to do it all, especially you don't do it all well.
You don't, see, there it is. You don't do it all well. There's a Trump Tower downtown. It's got this big name on it, okay? Did Trump lay the bricks on that building?
Not at all.
He didn't pick up not one hammer? Oh, no,
so not even the first, no.
See what I'm saying? But he gets credit for that building.
Of course he does. He gets his name slapped all over everything, every napkin, everything in it.
You see what I'm saying? That's the whole point here, okay? When you designate people to solve these problems, you still gonna get credit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Especially, and that doesn't mean that you don't oversee.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to make sure that everything is going on. I believe from the standpoint of having a structure, of like be able to know, okay, we're all going the same place. This is, you know, I'm making sure that this is within, but they don't always trust everyone They don't provide that kind of training, first of all.
True.
So then they don't trust everyone to do that.
Mhm.
So what they do is they dig themselves a ditch.
Yes.
You know, and they're constantly trying to get out of the ditch, but, you know, they can't.
They can't. Oh, I know.
They're trying to be everybody's Holy Ghost. It doesn't work that way.
It don't work, okay? I promise y'all I'll get to this article. 75% of the workplace harassment victims experience retaliation when they speak up. Shame, fear, and cultural norms all allow sexual harassment to go underreported. There is so much we don't know, but there's a research that tells us some specifics about the state of the problem and the factors that make it better or worse in different workplaces. Harvey Weinstein, depending on your language, long alleged history of sexual preying on actresses, journalists, musicians, and then scaring them into silence has spurred a deep charged national conversation about sexual harassment in the workplace. As more women speak up about this issue, demanding something be done. There is a lack of clarity of what can be done, though, which is the purpose of this show. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is a government agency responsible for processing the sexual harassment complaints. If you didn't know that, that do get reported. Says nearly 1/3 of the 90,000 complaints received in 2015 included a harassment allegation, but the agency noted that the number is too low to reflect reality. They also estimate that 75% of all workplace harassment incidents go unreported. Look at all of the rape kits that are sitting in the jail, in the police stations, and in the hospitals. They're not open. They're left unopened. All right, this is an epidemic in America.
Absolutely.
In 2016, the EEOC released a comprehensive study of workplace harassment in the United States, which concluded that anywhere from 25% to 85% of women report having experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. It's a strikingly wide gap, but one that is very substantially even in its most conservative estimate, statistically predicting 1 in 4 people are affected by workplace sexual harassment. 1 in 4. That means that the 4 people around your cubicle, one of them, the boss have already, so it says,
if the other 3 haven't, then it might be you.
Yeah, it might be you. So number 1 says some industries are worse. Number 2, 75% who retaliate, they get knocked down. Number 3, when acts of harassment are specifically defined, more women report incidents. Okay, but there are also.
But they are defined in terms of like the programs that they put together for sexual harassment, because that's why they make them take those classes.
Absolutely.
You know, because they define them. If it looks like this, if they do this, if they say that. But one thing that you said in terms of the retaliation, that it reminded me also that, for example, people as children who have suffered, say, sexual abuse on the hands of their fathers, that there were some instances where the siblings didn't want them to say anything because that would ruin the home. So sometimes from the standpoint in terms of taking that to the workplace, that you're throwing rocks at the company where we all work, where we all get our check. So you know you're jeopardizing my livelihood by saying this. You know what I'm saying? So it becomes a situation where people are motivated to as much as squelch other people. They don't care about the fact that this has happened. They care about what effect this is going to happen to the company that I work for.
What it looks like.
Yeah.
Then that's deep. That's something to think about, because I mentioned the Duggar family. Gosh, even those in the White House, I'm looking at the whole Bill Clinton situation with Monica Lewinsky. I know in my heart of hearts, I believe that Hillary Clinton knew the truth.
I'm sure she knew.
She knew the truth, but she was the first lady, and there was there was the world looking.
They were all clamoring to know, what are you going to do?
Absolutely, yes. And so she actually began to, in a sense, abuse the victims by saying certain things like, I'm not Tammy Wynette, stand by your man, and she began to.
But what does that mean? Because she did stand by him, so.
That sent mixed messages.
Yeah, but in my opinion, he was all about mixed messages.
Yes, she is all about it. That's hence her not winning.
Sorry, Hillary.
Yes, sorry, Hillary. Yeah. Maybe next 4 or 8 years.
Yeah.
God help us all. Yeah, well, she'd be so old, she'd be like, you know what, I can't even walk. Jacqueline Coleman says, listening in has opened up a pain that I thought was gone.
Oh,
I told y'all, when I opened up the show, I told y'all it was going to happen.
It triggers things.
Pastor told me that my attitude problem was due to sexual desires, and I needed to see him to help him with my healing. She said I was a virgin. I had a twofold hurt because my father went to the church with his gun.
Oh, wow.
So this pastor allowed me to take my father, who himself was a minister, to a place that could have taken him from my sister and I for life.
I understand that.
Well, I see.
I understand that.
Every time I do these shows, people come forth with their story.
I understand that. And everybody, and so many people have one.
Everybody can tell you something about somebody.
It's very seldom that nobody has any kind of, whether it's even distantly, through a family, a cousin, or something. Something has happened.
Something has happened.
This has touched us.
Yeah, absolutely, it has. Number 3 on here says, when acts of harassment are specifically defined, more women report incidences. Digging deeper into the numbers of people affected by workplace sexual harassment, the EEOC found that reports of incidents grew when the specific acts that count as harassment were more specifically defined in the survey. In other words, when people were just asked outright if they had experienced sexual harassment at work without the term being defined, 1 in 4 reported having experienced some form of harassment in the workplace. But when specific acts of harassment were mentioned, like sexual coercion or crude jokes, 60% of women reported having experienced some type of sexual harassment. And this is important though.
It is. Because
we have to define what it is. Because if I walk up to you and pat you on the back and say, hey, how you doing? You smell nice. Your interpretation might be sexual harassment. You see what I'm saying? So it needs to be defined in the books.
And that could go either way, in a sense, because sometimes people, that's how they are, and that's what they don't mean anything by it.
No.
And then there are those that do. It's kind of like sometimes racism that is very subtle.
Oh boy.
You know, if it's very subtle, a lot of times you don't even realize. When it's really at its best, you don't even realize that you've just been dumped. You know, you don't even realize that you have just been done, that somebody just did you.
Yes.
So, you know, sexual harassment, it depends on how smooth, I guess, the harasser is. Yeah. You know, a lot of times, though, we're in a culture now where you don't have to be that smooth anymore.
No, you don't.
You know, you were supposed to hide that thing under a rock. Now, not so much.
Not so much. Ooh, we hide it under a rock. Hide it under a bushel, as the Bible says. Number 4 says those once a year sexual harassment seminars, they say likely does nothing.
Well,
company sexual harassment training is easily mocked and often brushed off in popular culture. The EEOC is at it again.
Because there's no consequences.
No, there's not. Much of the training done over the past 30 years has not worked as a prevention tool. It's been too focused on simply avoiding legal liability. That's all it's been. But there are innovative to anti-harassment programs that have seen some results. Martin says, namely in bystander training and tailoring programs to specific workplaces. There is also emphasis on middle-aged managers who are seen as the first line of defense against inappropriate behavior. One witness told the EEOC researchers, this person said, if I had limited assets to improve the climate of an organization, I would invest 95% of them in middle managers. These are the people who make all of the difference in the day-to-day lives of organizations and people. When we train middle managers, we don't just train them about how to spot and address problem behavior. We teach them empirically sound things to do and say when an employer seeks them out to discuss a problem. Okay, again, this is I think number 4 is very closely related to number 3 by how to define it. because these middle managers
That's
know how
kind
to
of the
fight.
evolution of it,
Mhm,
because
yeah.
before, they were pressured into putting something in place for the issue of sexual harassment, and as you said, they pointed out some things and whatnot, but really, ultimately, I don't think that there was a lot of consequence involved in that.
Mhm.
I don't think that it was a situation where, it wasn't enough to scare them off from actually doing it, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? And so, so I think that it's evolving now, it's becoming more specific, and, which is good, but women, we're gonna have to take more responsibility, because when we don't, it becomes a situation of we're the complainers.
We're the complainers.
You know, we're the ones, we got issues and all of this other stuff, so we have to help to define what this is, because it affects us largely.
Amen with that. Going to this quick break. I'll be right back. So, well, the Jones Show. Have to define it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, sexual harassment costs companies millions. Oh boy. Well,
That's a drop in the bucket.
well, look at Bill Radi.
Mhm.
32 million. That was a 23 or 32 million dollars settlement.
Well, you heard he's mad at God now.
Yeah, he says when I get there, of course I don't know.
Yeah,
That-
he's gonna get
the,
anywhere
the
close.
jury is out on that,
Yeah.
but he blamed God for this. He said when I see God, I'm gonna ask them. He said
Why did they let?
why they let me? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So he blamed God.
But he also said that from the standpoint, all that money that he paid out is no,
Admission to guilt.
culpability,
Yeah.
no admission of guilt.
Yeah, yes, yeah. He was trying to protect his.
Right.
Usually the predators, they bring their kids in this.
Mm-hmm.
Weinstein brought his kids in this.
Oh, wow.
Cosby brought his family in this.
Yeah.
They always bring their families. You're gonna hurt my children if
Right,
you
right.
all these things. But did you think about
Your children,
When
you didn't think about your children,
Yeah.
you didn't think about her children, you didn't think about anybody.
No, you think about nobody's children, okay? And I think that
Oh,
that is
well,
a
wee Willie Winky.
but that is another mental ploy
Mm-hmm.
to work on you
Mhm.
because everybody's soft on children
Of
and
course.
family.
Right, so we're supposed to have mercy.
Absolutely. Yes, and grace upon that,
Right.
which is anyway. Robert Taylor says, my close friend was raped by a coach. All these coaching bishops. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm in the Church of God in Christ. Okay, this ain't denominational wide. All right, everybody ain't doing this.
But the people.
Many of my listeners are coaches.
Exactly. That's
Okay,
the
so
only.
that's
the
the only thing they can identify. But I just needed to make
same sort of thing.
I had to make an addendum
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna think I'm a coach preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have to protect the organization,
Mhm.
even though the organization has.
And I think we understand that our listeners are primarily coaching.
Mhm.
That it's not a situation in which that you're just trying to badmouth coaching preachers. But
No.
the truth is the truth.
Well,
you know?
it
What, are
happens.
you going to do another cover up?
Yeah, it happens in every denomination.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's just right now, many of my listeners are coaching
Mm-hmm. Right.
because I work for the Catholic Church as well,
Mm-hmm.
and trust me, it was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they mandatory. They made us teachers
Mhm.
take these sexual classes.
Wow.
We had to because too many of the priests were doing
Mhm.
these things.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would take these priests and reassign them somewhere else so they can do it again. They knew these priests were molesting these boys,
Mm-hmm.
and they did the cover up
Mm-hmm.
thing. They said, okay, if we just remove them from
Reassign
our,
them
then
somewhere else.
let this cardinal deal
Deal with
it.
them.
You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's what they did. Well, Kojic did the same thing. The Baptists did the same thing.
Yeah.
Lutheran, Presbyterian, Assemblies of God, they all did the same thing. Okay,
Mhm.
today's Kojic. Sorry, Bishop Blake, but I gotta talk about it. She says my best friend was raped by Kojic Bishop when she let me know what's going on because I ain't hear nothing. When she told the other bishops and women in the church, they told her she brought it on herself,
Oh, wow.
and they shunned her, and they had a nervous breakdown. She had a nervous breakdown.
Right.
The pastor whom I speak of was Baptist, Jackson says. Okay, well, we got one Baptist.
Mhm.
We'll equal opportunity
Okay,
expose
yeah.
her.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so there it is. Denial. Denial.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, and it goes back, and I keep saying this because
Right.
I keep saying this because to me it goes back to the whole issue of sexual abuse and molestation.
Mhm.
You know, the mother who denied. You know, this is our family. So when the daughter said that daddy did this, you know, it's like, oh no, you know, something was wrong, you misunderstood, blah, 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 blah. You know, because she didn't want this, like, where am I gonna go if I leave this man because of this sort of thing, and it's not that bad, and, you know, whatever the rationale is.
Whatever the rationale is.
Mhm.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm, you know, too many times I get calls or inbox messages from women who's been molested by daddy or uncle.
Wow.
Or the man that mama brought in.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay? And the narrative is the same. I'm going to tell you what that is as soon as he all right. Welcome back to Some Other Show. I mean, I promise you it's me. Look at me. I'm right here. Okay? Those of you on the app can't see me, but that's fine. You know my sexy voice.
That's right.
Oh, you just keep telling me this. Yeah, I know I sound like Barry White. I know. Come on, I can put the bass in there. Yeah. We were talking about this sexual harassment in our churches. Okay? And I forgot my point. I was getting ready to say something. What was I going to say? I forgot.
I think I was following you.
You was following me, and I fell off the train wreck. Yeah. See, it just went like that.
But we were talking about sexual abuse in the church. We were talking about from the standpoint of parents, children who have experienced sexual abuse, and a mother.
Yes, thank you. I knew you was smart. I didn't know you was that smart, though. Yes, you're amazingly smart. Yes. No, what was I talking about again? No. The narrative. The baby, the child, even the adult. This could be an adult who's been molested. All right? Comes to the parent or the pastor or the church leader.
The authority figure.
It says, so-and-so did so-and-so to me. Okay, I'm dealing with this right now with a young lady who was molested by a trusted man in a church. All right? Now, she's a grown woman now. She's about my age. And she came to me. She says, so-and-so molested me when I was so-and-so age. And I says, now, in my mind, I said, that could not have happened. You know why I said that? Because I know the person that they're talking about.
Of course.
And I've known this person for years. And in my mind, I'm like, that could not have happened. But then my other brain, which is the smartest side of my brain, says, oh, yes, I bet you that happened. Wow. Because I also know the victim. And I've never known her to
do or say anything or get that kind of validation.
Yes, because that's something she just wouldn't come out the blue and just say that to me.
Something triggered her.
Yeah, something triggered. So, and I says, wow, all this time you kept this to yourself. She says, I just couldn't. She says, every time I see him, I just so she says, so I stopped going to that ministry because I just couldn't. So now I'm left to this place of, what do I say to her? Because the reason why she came to me, because I have a platform. All right, she sees it that I have a platform. She sees people actually listen to me for some reason. I don't know why people listen to me, okay? And I bring up stuff, so she says, it's time for me to tell you my story. When she told me her story, I literally, if I had false teeth, they would have fell out.
Oh, wow.
I think some of my real teeth came out. I said, I can't believe this really happened to you. And then, here's the narrative. I went to my leaders, and my leaders said, no, he didn't.
They just determined that he did not do it.
He could not have done that. Not him. Surely he could not have done that. What, you were delusional, or maybe
she was delusional.
Yes, maybe
you didn't understand.
You did something. Maybe his overly friendliness may have made you think. Listen, remember I mentioned I'll pat you on the back and tell you you smell nice. Maybe you thought that was. She said, no, this happened. She was specific with it, and so they said, well, we'll deal with it, and they never did.
Of course not.
Because they can't. They don't know how to deal with it. You see what I'm saying? That this happens probably every day.
Well, this is the thing. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, and I just assume when I also have experienced sexual abuse.
Sure.
Okay? As a child when I was 5 years old, I experienced sexual abuse. And then different times as I was growing up as a teenager. Now, the one when I was 5 years old, I actually completely blocked that out of my mind.
Right.
I completely, as a matter of fact, I was watching an episode of Oprah when she's talking about abuse, sexual abuse and whatnot. This is after I had my first child, and it brought it all back up. But my point is this, bottom line, these people do these things, and we might not be able to control that, but your responsibility to your spiritual and your physical health is yours.
Yes.
So you have to find the help. You can't just rely, if this was done in church, when your family, wherever it was, And this thing, whether it pops up and it's triggered now, whether it's triggered years from now, know that God is able to heal.
Yes.
Know that God is able to deliver us from these things. Because a whole lot of things come in that package that gets left at our doorstep because of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's abuse, it's victimization, it's rape. You know,
Sure.
it's violation. You have been violated, and we don't know what to do with it, especially from the standpoint we figure we go to church, we shout hallelujah, and then we go home and that thing is still there. But know that that's what deliverance is about. And when you pray about it, you cry out. When that thing is in its peak and it's really messing with you, you cry out to God. God will direct your path to someone that can help you in terms of deliverance.
That's true.
You know, sometimes you have to make a move. I mean, I would not stay in a situation where if someone has sexually abused me, you know, and you have to go to church. And I mean, even when I hear about them doing some other stuff, I couldn't sit and listen to them anymore, because it's like you don't practice what you preach.
Yes.
You know, so if you don't practice what you preach, you can't teach me anything, because I want to learn obedience. I want to learn how to walk in Christ. That's what I want. And so if you're not teaching me that by your obedience, by your lifestyle, then you're being hypocritical. You know, you're speaking out of one side of your face and then the other. So just recognize that for what it is. But know that it's not a hopeless situation, because people have killed themselves because of things that have happened in this. So know that it's not the end, that as long as there's life, there's hope. But at the same time, you need to put this squarely in God's hands.
Yes.
Because that's in my opinion, that's the first step of being free from it.
I agree. That's the first step, all right? And that's usually the way it's important to start the conversation and end the conversation. Everything in between is fine, all right? Now, I was married, okay? My ex-wife was abused, all right? More so physically, and a lot of it was an accident. Now, I didn't know that. I knew she was abused, but I didn't know to the extent of the abuse until we were married. But then I also didn't know how it affected her mentally until we were married. Because then she would have night tremors.
Oh, wow.
Even though she was in her 20s, and this thing happened when she might have been 4 years old.
Wow.
She would have night tremors.
Wow.
Now, me, a young man at 21, 22, how do I deal with that? All right? And then the thought of what this man did to her, okay? And then having to face this man, because he was a family member, so we had to face him. And so her reluctancy, all right? So I'm talking to you men out there, you husbands out there especially, who's dealing with this with your wives, all right? Sexually, there are things that she withhold because possibly in that, maybe that position, sexually, okay, that thing that you want to do, she may not want to do it because possibly that is the portal. That is the anchor.
That's the gateway.
That's the gateway to what that man did to her. So she's uncomfortable in that area. And you as a man should not, like I mentioned earlier, Lord, like pastors are lording over people. You've got to be sensitive to her. All aspects of it. If we had gotten proper counseling when we were younger, I would have been able to deal and handle this, okay? But I bucked against it because I didn't know the whole story. I just saw the story. I didn't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I saw the ramifications of it.
Exactly.
And so I dealt with it.
Again, not knowing what to do. How do you know?
What do you do? How do you do it? Okay, and so that caused problems in our marriage. But if we had just sought, because she didn't even know how to, she didn't think that she needed to seek counsel. You see what I'm saying?
No.
These are things that victims don't know. That's why we do shows like this, because sometimes victims just say, it's old, I'm done with it.
You know,
And some people are not, because you could tell the way they act that they're not done with it. Somebody just mentioned it.
I believe that.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you think about it from the standpoint, sexual abuse, and see, we're gonna go, a lot of people wanna say that spiritual things are, you know, I don't know, but we are spirit beings. Okay, so sexual abuse is, I believe that has a lot to do with why, say, someone who was sexual abuse, that they either shut off, or they become sexually promiscuous, or that they develop certain behaviors. And a lot of times, because, I mean, we can get into from the standpoint of when the abuse took place, familiar spirits that attach,
Yep.
that still have, they still drive and have manifestation in certain arenas and in certain ways in terms of our lives and how we deal with things. So when she
Right.
married you, she wasn't marrying you thinking from the standpoint of that. She just didn't understand why her response to you was a certain way. Because something is operating within you, within her, that she did not understand.
True.
She didn't understand herself, so she couldn't explain it to you.
Right.
But when you go through deliverance, when someone, if you say, okay, there's something wrong, and usually a person willing to go through experience is really desperate.
Right.
They come to that last thing. It's like, I don't know what this, something is bothering, there's something that's operating here with me. I don't even know it's me.
Right.
Because I do certain things and I have certain responses to certain things, but I kind of feel it's not just me.
Sure.
A lot of times, a person like that needs to go through deliverance.
They do.
Because in order to be free, to be able to love and to be able to experience life that you're not supposed to have those kind of bondages.
True.
But if there is something that's operating within you, a lot of times a person may need to, I had to go through, inner healing. I had to go through deliverance, and it's not from the standpoint that, oh, it's spitting in the bucket kind of thing. It's a thing where, from the standpoint, you are really counting on God to deliver you. And somebody that's there that is familiar with what this thing is and the things that come with it to really get you free from that. So they take you before the Lord to help you to get free from these things. And so it's not a joke, but a lot of times churches feel like, there's no need for it. Many churches feel like there's no need for deliverance, and they teach their people that. So now you got to deal with this thing on your own. Because there's nobody there to help you with that. Your pastor doesn't know or understand. It's kind of like, get over it. It's a long time ago. Get over it. And it's not that simple. If it were that simple, then, there would be no need for deliverance.
There would be no need for deliverance. Yeah, and so true, so true. But Gil's saying something very important here. Okay, Buddy Gil's my best friend, by the way. Don't tell him about that. All right. He says, okay, coming back in here, let me say this: many of our churches, especially black churches, are not trained or equipped to handle the crime and the aftermath of sexual abuse or misconduct. We mentioned this, Buddy. You were gone. I think there's a serious conflict of interest in the church when it comes to dealing with these type of situations. Yeah, we brought that up. So y'all should stay tuned in, because we talk about all that stuff. Yeah. So this is again, is an epidemic. It's sad to say, but all right. Let's end this by talking about what are some of the things that you can avoid, if at all possible. All right. How could you avoid this possible, or what can you do when you're facing it and you know that he's making these advances? What can you do as a female? You're on your job. You're in the pastor's study by yourself. Right? What do you do once?
That is the good question.
Yes.
Right there.
Once you realize this ain't going to end too good. Okay? Are there some things that we could do?
I think that many times it seems like when you're in a situation and you're getting this vibe, and sometimes you get the vibe to the degree that, okay, well, you might not think anything is going to happen at that particular point, and you really think that you can handle it. I would say, from the standpoint, if you can avoid being in that situation altogether, you were there once, if you can keep from going back, don't go back. If you really feel that this is what this person is on, and they haven't really done anything, they haven't really touched you, sort of things, just maybe that they whispered in your ear or what have you, they didn't try to restrain you or something like that, then certainly don't go back. Right. What if it's a work situation and you got to go to work the next day? What is it that you do? Is your company set up to handle sexual harassment cases and whatnot? You may have to actually go file a case, but even at that, if you're going to do that, you need to document things. Don't let it be, oh, I don't know, it's just a feeling he gives me because sometimes he can be kind of creepy. Okay, no, you want to document. You want to document, and I would say, from the standpoint, sometimes let them know that you're documenting them, because a lot of times if they think, if you're that crazy that you're going to document what I'm doing, then maybe I'll just stop it or I won't do it to you. You know, so
Sure.
I think that people, in light of there being truth, they can say whatever they want. You know, it's my word against hers, her words against mine. But if you start to document some things,
Yes.
you know, and we live in social media, so, you know, from the standpoint, you have to figure out what the best way of that is. If it's emails, saving those emails, if it's texts, or whatever, if it's phone calls maybe, you know, even if you're just keeping a log or a diary or something, and you can say, okay, well, but if you got nothing, it's
Yes.
very difficult to
I agree.
substantiate.
I agree. I like the documentation portion, especially that the FBI director met with Donald Trump before he fired him.
Yeah.
Comey. He documented everything. Strategic, because that's his makeup. So when he got fired, he was able to present these documents.
Exactly.
So all Trump had was just a green, blue, orange face, okay? Because he can get it out if he want to.
Right.
But the FBI guy was known for documenting everything.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about this documentation. All right, I'm gonna tell y'all what to do illegally. Yes, I am. This is the last break for those of you on the app. We're gonna take it in and bring you back. I promise you. So on the Jones Show. So here's what you need to do illegally. Okay, you're like, illegally? How dare you give us some illegal advice? Well, you want your sanity to be in place, right? Okay, and I understand that this your job, is a place where you get a paycheck so you can support that house which you shouldn't have bought anyway.
Right.
How you gonna buy a $400,000 house when you make $23,000 a year? Okay, I don't understand that. Now, Johanna, help me with that one. Bible says, say something. The times are different now. We have greater resources and outlets. Yes. All right. When you walk in there initially, the reason why it says illegally is because you are not allowed to record anybody without their consent. Phone calls, whatever. You can't do that. I don't care.
Exactly, I don't either.
Yeah, okay. All right, so, but when you walk into your boss's office, you're not going to be recording them because he has not given you a reason to do that.
Right.
Until he gives you a reason to do something. Okay, now, so what I do is, I'm just telling y'all my secret. Once a conversation gets to a place where I say to myself, uh-oh, I think I need to record this. All right? All the trusty phones are awesome.
Absolutely.
Because it just looks like I'm either texting or I'm taking notes or what have you. But there's a wonderful recorder on y'all's phone.
Absolutely. That's
You
an
hit
Olivia Pope.
Yeah, come on.
Scandal.
You hit that record. I do it all the time. Now I don't do it to y'all, my friends, because I ain't trying to take y'all to court for nothing, okay? Unless y'all want me to. But I hit that record button, bloop. All right, and then I can hide it, and if you want to know it, I can show it to you when I see it. It's a recording. I just set it down, and the conversation is being recorded. If I know that there's something going on that I can't say, he didn't say that.
Right.
All right, now it's being recorded. Now, when I leave the office as a woman, okay, we have to think about this. What do I do now? Because I know it was a recording, and now what I say could actually go against me in the recording. Because we watch these drama shows all the time, these law shows where they entrap you.
Right.
Okay, but there's certain things they can't say. Right. Even though they got secret cameras there. Right. They can't mess up. Okay, I gotta bring this back, y'all. Hold on. I got many gifts. I'm tired. My fingers and hands are just flowing all over the place. I got to sign in everybody at one time. All right? Now, welcome back to the So Jones Show, urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Those of you on the app, we back. We blickety black, okay? Okay, I'm talking about doing stuff illegally, all right? Go ahead and record your conversation if you know that somebody is saying something. You might get it midstream because you didn't know he was getting ready to say it. Record that sucker, all right? Leave the room and you can stop the recording, all right? And play it back if you have to. But while it's recording, just be quiet. Let that person talk to them. Come on, and you do like the boxer, Muhammad Ali, that whole rope-a-dope. He just let his opponent tire himself out. Okay, let that man say everything he can. He gonna ask you different questions. What color your underwear is? I mean, he gonna go there. And you just keep focusing on the work. Keep focusing on the work as much as you can, and then ignore it. See, if you give these guys, you give them the answer that they're looking for, then man, he's gonna feel like she really wants, even though you're gonna say no from that point on,
Right.
it don't matter to him.
Right.
You let him in there, okay? So you just ignore it and stay focused on the work, all right?
Absolutely.
He gonna get eventually exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
focus back on the work.
Mm-hmm.
That don't mean he's gonna stop,
Wow.
okay? Leave the office,
Mhm.
sit at your chair and wonder,
Mm-hmm.
map out your plan.
Mm-hmm.
Map it out,
Absolutely.
map it out. You make sure you make copies of that thing, get that thing off your phone.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
recorder.
Absolutely.
Take that recording, put it in the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
all right? Save that sucker,
Mm-hmm.
send it to something else that you know you can save, because anything can happen, all right? And now you got documentation for that, because you may need to use that. Now, tomorrow, you may have another meeting.
Exactly.
You got to think about, because he's gonna bring it up again.
Absolutely.
You gotta think about what you're gonna say, what you're gonna do. And if that repeats itself, well, you know, you're gonna, first of all, you're gonna walk in there now with the recording on this time.
Right.
And you record all that stuff, all right? Now, eventually, it may get to a place where it's too much, and he may start touching you, things like that. Because men we're dumb. We think because, we just think, we look at everything as really it's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even your avoidance and all this stuff, because we look at how you dress,
Women
we
do
look
the
at how
same
nice
thing.
you were to
Yeah.
us, how you might have complimented our tie. We look at all
How
of that.
you didn't call the police, you know, how you didn't turn us in the first time.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We look at all of that as she really want this,
Mhm.
all right? And then you got to think about it. I may lose my job over this.
Right.
And look at the Vox, the report says that 75% of the women who do come forth, many of them, they lose out on the opportunity. And you got to think, what's more important? To continue to go to work and get barraged by this man and wonder, okay, or give in to his advances and keep my $100,000 job. And I think that's the Weinstein effect.
I think so. I think that a lot of times it's like, what is this really worth to me?
Yes.
Am I really worth, am I willing to lose what I worked for?
Built up.
What I've built for, can I really afford to lose it? And it's kind of like the woman that stays with the abusive husband.
Yes.
You know, like, nah, I don't have where else to go. But we have to determine from the standpoint, I guess we make these kind of determinations. How serious is this? You know, do I feel like I can handle this situation? Because everybody's not prepared to just walk off and leave that job, or, you know, from the standpoint, this movie might be my Oscar movie. So, you know, if I have to get past this troll to do it, you know, then maybe I'm gonna do that.
Do it.
But the thing is, if you're willing to do that, then you have to say, how am I prepared to live with the, you know, to live with that? You know, because you will.
Exactly. And you notice, if you've been paying any attention to the Weinstein thing, is that many of the women were saying the same thing. They let him go that far because there was a place they were trying to get to. And they reached that plateau, but it cost them the smell of this man on their bodies, okay? Who's that? Lapita, the black actress.
Young girl.
Yeah, I think, she says he invited her over, and he asked her for a massage.
With his kids in the other room.
You see what I'm saying? And she's like, now, she says, for the first time in his presence, I felt freaked out by it. She says, but I went on, notice she said, I went on ahead and did it because this way I know where his hands are.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So she says, I massaged him, and when I got through, I got up out of there. Well, she eventually had another meeting with him. Why? Because she was trying to get to a place, right? And now some women look at that as being ridiculous. I would never go to that. But we got to look at what her mindset
Exactly.
was.
We don't know what somebody would do.
Yeah,
When somebody's dangling a carrot, something that you
Man.
want right in front of your
And
face.
you starving, you just don't know. So this is why we have these shows to talk about both sides, all aspects of it. Demetri Pitt says, well, we all need to make a habit of documenting occurrences. Record everything if necessary. Then when you get home, put it in a paper format, like the FBI guide. Demetri, what she continues says, and don't forget to add in your personal deposition how it made you feel. In certain organizations, the abuser can get themselves in trouble simply based on I felt threatened, hence
That's a very
the police.
key word.
I
And the
felt
thing is,
threatened.
if you don't document, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, you really didn't care. You really liked
It just didn't happen. It just,
Yes.
it's my word against your word.
Yep.
You know, and I'm in a
Yes.
position of power and you're not.
And
so.
you're not, absolutely. And someone did document him. There's some audio of Weinstein talking about, please, I need this, and he was sounding desperate. And you know, we already know what he looked like physically, so it was like you kind of want to vomit when you. I'm sorry, y'all, but he just don't look like. Anyway, well, you know, the predators don't really have a face, if you know what I mean. They don't really have a face. So now you got to make this decision. What do I do now? In walks this advice of what do you wear the next day? How do you carry yourself? And when people bring up this conversation, it makes the victim uncomfortable because it feels like she's being more victimized. Now I can't wear what I want to wear. You see what I'm saying? So when this woman that wrote this in the paper, they suspended her. I forgot what paper it was. I don't know if it was the Washington Post, but she wrote in there, okay, the victims, you can't wear the short skirt, you can yada yada yada, and her bosses had to let her go because it felt like she was telling the victims, you can't wear that color.
Well, you can't. To be honest, you know, from the standpoint of you know that what you're going to wear is going to evoke a certain response, then you take responsibility also if you're going to wear it. I'm sorry.
Sure.
If I don't want anybody saying anything to me or what have you because maybe my top is cut too low, then maybe I shouldn't wear it cut that low.
Sure.
I mean, we live in a society where you can get almost anything you want
Sure
to
can.
wear. So you can dress more conservatively,
Yeah.
and a lot of times the workplace is supposed to be kind of conservative. You know, you're not supposed to, you know, have this, especially when you know that you have cretins there that can't handle or want an excuse not to handle themselves.
Sure.
So why feed into that based upon your right to wear whatever you want to wear? Just don't. You know, if it's that important to you, just don't.
Absolutely. And what you
Make
said,
better choices.
well, that's true. Now, two things. What you said is very unpopular,
I know.
but what you said is biblical. So, which one are you gonna lean on? The unpopularity or that which is biblical?
I cannot, and I think we struggle with popularity
Yes, we
because
do.
we all want to be
Political
liked.
correct.
We all want to be loved. We
Yeah.
all want to get along and whatnot. But for those of us that are in Christ, we have to go with what is biblical,
Sure.
on what our relationship with Him dictates. You know, bottom line. No, like you said, it's not at all popular, and I understand. And you know, but that's where we live in terms of this society.
Right.
Okay, but the bottom line is, first of all, you're aiding in your own rescue
Yes.
by doing that. Why should I put myself, okay, I want to look, every woman wants to look beautiful.
Sure.
You know, I don't know, as I said, when we don't want to look beautiful, trust me, we do not care. You know, it's like, I don't care what you do, we don't care anymore for that day. We're going to go out in our sweats or whatever, no makeup, we don't care. But for the most part, every woman, even those who seem to not care, we want to still be beautiful.
Yes.
We want to be attractive. But the thing is, when you're attracting negative attention, you know, I think that we need to be able to take some precautions. And we need to determine what are those precautions that are within our power to make.
Yes. Yes. I'll say something very controversial as we end the show. You know, the Bible alludes to modest apparel. The reason why it tells you to wear modest apparel is because of what it might do to someone else. Number one. Number two, what you look like to the world. There's supposed to be a separation. You shouldn't look like the world.
Exactly.
Number three, it says when you do something that when you cause someone to stumble, God holds you responsible for causing the person. Even though the person stumbled, He still holds them responsible. He holds you first responsible because you caused them to stumble. And it's unpopular to say that, okay? And you have to specify what these things are, all right? And that's a whole nother show. And I know what I just said was a bomb dropper. You think I care? No, I want to tell y'all your head up, backs me up. Shoot. Demetri Pitt says sexual harassment is a form of sex discrimination that violates the title 567. I have to do that numeric, that Roman numeric, V2, get ahead. I think that's 7 of the Civil Rights Act, 1964. All right, she's going deep there. Jacqueline says that's a scary thought that haunts you because losing my father to prison laid heavy on me as a teenager. And I question myself if it happened again, what I tell my father. He assured me
I
to.
understand that too.
But mine was unsettled. And Phillips says the enemy has really confused the real meaning of love and shown love. Saints and Christians need real Christian counseling, professional counseling. Help us, Lord. He says, Demetri Pitt says, whether you're being biblical or not is for your own good to dress appropriately.
Exactly.
Because in a court of law, they will use that against you and cause enticement. And that's what I said early in the show. It's the all in the family effect. That lawyer says, Gloria, you were scantily dressed and you made this man want you.
We don't want to be told how to dress.
You shouldn't be.
We don't want to be told, but sometimes we may need to be. I know that I was told when I was much younger how to dress, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's their problem. You know, you got a problem. You don't like this. I'm not. But the thing is that I had to realize that they were right.
Yeah, absolutely. They were right. All right. Well, whether you like it or not, truly there's going to be a mixed audience out there who didn't like what we just said at this last part. That comes with the project. If I said Jesus is Lord right now on YouTube, there'll be 1,000 people who says, you go to hell.
Oh, wow.
If there is a hell, go to hell, go there. Yes, trust me. No matter what you say, there are going to be people out there who don't like what you said. That's America. That's what makes us
And they have
great.
a right to feel that way.
They have a right. They have the First Amendment rights to say whatever they want to say, whether you like it or not. God has the final say.
Absolutely.
D. Curtis Randall in the Morning, award-winning show. Yes, and he used to have hair before the show, but now, well, let's pray for his head.
Okay.
Yeah, he bought. All right, Albert Washington in the news. Johanna, the great Johanna Bright, is over here with all of the YouTube and the Facebook stuff. She's just making us look good around the world. Urban Broadcast Media, love you. So Arthur Jones, show. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, Facebook Live. Y'all are the greatest since sliced bread.